Here we go and welcome. Welcome to Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology. Today we are doing a little introduction into the three basic constitutions of constitutional iridology. It's so good to have you with me, and I would just love it if you would let me know where you're from. If you just in the chat box, just type your city or your country, that would be great. As you're doing that, I just want to remind you that what I'm sharing with you today is for your education only. We never use iridology to diagnose or prescribe, and we are not going to be doing that today. We also need to remember that whatever results you get using this information, that's your responsibility, not mine. So welcome again. We've got someone from Texas. Welcome. Hi, I'm glad you're with us. And I'd love to know where everybody else is from as well. So while those comments are coming in, I just want to encourage you to participate and ask questions. And if it's at all possible for me to answer them in the scope of our topic, I absolutely will. Little introduction about me. I started studying holistic stuff in about 1979, and I've been a holistic practitioner since 1980, 81, around in there. I am a master herbalist, natural nutrition, clinical practitioner, certified iridologist, certified iridology instructor, and there's probably a few other things that have gotten lost in the alphabet soup. I'm the wife of one, the mom of 7, and the grandma of 8. So again, love it if you would just play with me in my sandbox and interact with me. Let me know where you're from. Maybe let me know if the sun is shining where you're at too. That would be fun to know. You know, when we are doing iridology, we are looking at using this to do faster assessments, and we're using it to be more accurate in our work. We're using it to create better and faster rapport, and we're using it to eliminate intake forms. Now, you still really do need to have a release form. You need to make sure that your clients understand your scope of practice, what your training is, what your limitations are, what you can and can't do, but you don't need an intake form. So when we are looking at these three basic constitutions, the first thing we're going to talk about this one first, and this is the lymphatic constitution. Where I live, this is the most prevalent eye type. Where you live, it might not be, because truly the most prevalent eye type in the world is the dark brown eye, the hematogenic eye. We will talk about those, but it's not prevalent where I live. And so when we are ascertaining this as our constitution, we will always have at least a little bit of blue. It might be an eye like this that is very blue all over the place. Or it might be that there's just a little bit of blue peeking through. So that's one thing. It has to have some blue. The other thing is you will always be able to see fibers. So even if there are other colors, which we don't have a lot of in this eye, but if there were other colors excuse me, masking things, we would still be able to see fibers in some areas. So if we have at least some blue and some fibers, it is a lymphatic iris. Now, our common health concerns with the lymphatic iris center around the mucous membranes, the acid levels in the body, not necessarily the stomach, but in the rest of the tissues, and the lymphatic system itself. When we are working with a lymphatic eye, of course, we always want to ask the client, what would they like our help with? Why have they come to seek us out? And in the context of what they want help with, we then need to decide what questions should we ask based on what we see in the eye. So for example, common questions that we use with the lymphatic iris are, is there a personal or family history of asthma, allergies, arthritis, eczema, psoriasis, kidney issues? Now, those things are all high acid situations. Right? And so we need to know our anatomy and physiology well enough. We need to know our body chemistry well enough for us to be able to connect the dots and take their symptoms, understand them in terms of acid levels in the body, even if we're not doing pH testing, which I don't do. But we need to understand then from whether their symptoms are related to acid or not. And if they are, then we can dive deeper with this quite easily. So we always ask about personal or family history because the iris itself is inherent. It is what has been passed down from the last 3 or 4 generations. And so the markings that we're seeing in the eye may be something that's been passed down, may be an indication of a potential weak link, but certainly the markings we see are not a guarantee of a current problem. So we need to be very aware of asking about personal or family history of the acid kinds of situations. Some other things that we typically see in a lymphatic iris or in a person who has a lymphatic constitution we'll often see thyroid and parathyroid imbalances. And that's because of calcium assimilation issues. Go back in your physiology and remember that the first role of calcium in the body is to neutralize acid. After the calcium has neutralized acid, whatever calcium is left goes to things like bones and teeth and the nervous system and muscle contraction and relaxation. And so we want to be aware that with these people, if our person has a thyroid or parathyroid issue, they are going to probably have a calcium assimilation issue. And if they can't assimilate their calcium, they're likely going to be chronically over acid, which their body wants to be over acid anyways. And so if they aren't getting the calcium assimilated, they're not going to neutralize their acid and keep it in check. Does that make sense? So we always want to ask questions around personal or family history of thyroid and parathyroid issues, bone health, dental health as well, if they are pertinent to our client's situation. Not every question the eyes want us to ask is relevant to what's going on with our client. We always have to honor our client and start with where they're at. Does that make sense? If it does, give me a big yes in the comments so I know this is landing for you. We will always have, as I said earlier, some shade of blue. Now, there's a lot of shades of blue. You know, whether you're using pencil crayons or you're just looking at eyes. Thank you, Holly, for letting me know that landed for you. I appreciate that. But there will always be some shade of blue. Remember, you've got like blue gray, steel gray, lavender, violet, baby blue, lots of different shades of blue. And so when we look at an eye like the one that's on your screen, and we need to remember that every screen has different resolutions for color. I have 4 computer screens, a tablet, and my phone. And no 2 of those show color the same. 2 of those computer screens are the same brand. One is 7 years old and one is brand new. They're connected to one computer. They don't even show color the same. So we always need to remember that when we're looking at an image, we're guesstimating the color. We always want to, if we can, look at the person's eye directly to ascertain the exact color. But you can see from this eye on my screen, this looks like it's a gray blue. On your screen, it might look like a brighter blue, or it might look more purplish, more violetish. And so just remember, all of those shades of blue count. Every one of them counts. But remember, we've always got visible fiber. Now, this is a great example of an eye that has other colors over it. The other colors, the browns and the yellows and the oranges, again, depending on what your computer monitoring is showing you, those different colors have no impact on whether this is a lymphatic eye or not, because there's blue and there's fibers. That means this is lymphatic. So as we look at this, then we want to be aware of asking those questions. Again, the personal or family history questions of asthma, allergies, arthritis, skin, kidney issues, things like that. If it is pertinent, ask the thyroid, parathyroid, calcium questions as well. So are you getting just a little glimmer of how this can help you in your client sessions? Whether you're a nutritionist or a herbalist or a naturopath, or you've got some other training where you need to delve into understanding your client's body, Do you see how this can work? The client hasn't given us a lot of information yet, but when we look at the eye, we already know they're prone to being over acid. And so when we understand their symptoms, we can ascertain whether they are manifesting as over acid, or are they already doing enough of the right things to keep their acid in check and to keep that predisposition in a good balance. Does that make sense? Remember, the eyes are inherent. Symptoms are transient. All right, let's go to the other end of the spectrum. So we've got the spectrum, we've got lymphatic over here. Now we've got brown, which we're going to call hematogenic on the other end. And so when we're looking at a brown eye, it's not going to necessarily be an all even chocolate brown. It can certainly have golds and tans in it as well. The two big things you're watching for here are, okay, we're looking for an absence of things. That's the best way to put this. We should not be able to see any of the fiber. So remember back here, let me just go back one slide. Oh my goodness, my computer won't let me grab this to bring it back. Okay, there we go. We've got all the fiber visible here, got lots of fiber visible. So on this one, we don't see the fiber radiating out. We look all over the place and there is no fiber, not one fiber to be seen. So that's the first thing. And the second question is there any blue or green or anything that could be a variation of blue poking through? The answer is no. We've got stuff at the edge. This is not in the iris. This is in the cornea, so it doesn't count. Neither if you're seeing this as a blue halo at the edge, that doesn't count either. On the iris itself, do we see any fibers? No. Do we see any blues or greens? No. That means this is a brown eye or a hematogenic eye. When we are looking at a hematogenic eye, we understand that their predispositions are towards having issues with their blood and their liver. Those are going to be our key issues that we want to keep in the back of our brain as we're talking to our client to find out more about them. So we want to ask them again, what do they want help with? And then we need to understand how blood and liver could be impacting those situations. So for instance, if I'm working with a woman who is going through menopause, and if she has brown eyes like this, I know darn well that menopause and the liver are like this. They are totally entangled with each other, and I'm going to have to work on liver things to deal with her menopause, right? If I'm working with someone who's got allergies, I know I've got to work with the liver. If I'm working with someone who's got immune deficiencies, I know I'm going to have to work with the liver. So the liver is involved in so many things, and we've got to understand what those pathways are. Other common things that we see, is this making sense? Yeah. Let me know. Because other common things that we see with the brown eye, with the hematogenic constitution are, they'll often have some challenges with stomach and digestion. Thank you, Carol, for letting me know. We'll often see issues with circulation and heart. We'll often see, as an offshoot of that, varicose veins or the risk up, which of course tie back to circulation, but also tie back to liver when you understand your pathways. These people tend to be more alkaline in their overall chemistry. So I'm not saying they are alkaline, but they tend to lean that way. And so they often need support. Back to here. So brown eye. These people, again, tend to be more prone to liver blood, but we often also see issues with stomach, digestion, circulation, heart, varicose veins, their pH, which tends to be a little more alkaline. And because of that, they often have problems assimilating their calcium. You need acid to assimilate calcium, correct? So we need to make sure we've got the right kind of pH level going on. Because minerals are critical to the endocrine balance, these people will also often struggle with keeping their hormones balanced overall. So because these are predispositions, we need to understand what the client wants help with. We need to understand what their symptoms are. We need to understand what they're already doing about those symptoms before we can move forward. Okay, we need that background information for us to work with to understand how to interpret what we're seeing in the eyes. The eyes don't tell us what's wrong. They give us predispositions, and from there we need to do our detective work. Again, the brown eye may have gold in it, and this image is not as in focus, but it's a great image of a brown eye that has a lot of fiber structure in here that's different than anything we've seen so far. So it's a really good example for that. There is no visible, we're not seeing individual visible fibers. We're not seeing any blue or any green. So then we need to know, what does the client want help with? And from there, we want to then understand, are there stomach and spleen or stomach and digestive issues? Are there spleen issues? Is there circulation or heart issues, varicose veins? And we need to detect that out based on what the client is telling us. If a client comes in and they're saying with this kind of an eye and they say they've got digestive issues, am I going to chase down anything about the heart or circulation? Not on the first few appointments. I might, because there are some indications here that heart might want to be an inherent issue. I will deal with that later, but we always start with where the client is now. We don't overload them with information they didn't ask for. Does that make sense? We want our client to feel very heard. We want them to know that we've understood what issues they were bringing in and what they want help with. And so we start with where they are at. As we get them good results and we've developed that really good rapport and that really good trust, then we can build on that and gradually branch out to working on a preventive, more global scale. You getting an idea of how this could work for you in your practice? Let me know if you are. This is the eye type that gives most practitioners the run for their money, in that they often don't know how to work with this. This is the eye that's in between. So we had lymphatic here, the blue eye. We had hematogenic here, which is the brown eye. And in the middle, we've got this eye, which is called a biliary eye. Now, in old school iridology, the kind that I learned 40 years ago, we would have gone, oh my goodness, you're so full of toxins. You need to cleanse. You really need to, we need to get rid of all this garbage that's in your body. And that is totally wrong. It's totally not correct, because this eye color is inherent. This is the result of having somewhere in the bloodline a lymphatic eyed parent and a hematogenic eyed parent, right? And you get those mixing, and this is what we get. And so when we look at this, how do we determine that this is actually a biliary iris? Is there any blue? No, there's no blue. You might have a little bit of white or maybe some green or some gold in these gaps in here, in these rings that are coming around, but we don't see any blue. You might have golden highlights or areas that are quite gold. And we do see fibers. We've got fibers radiating out. So where the lymphatic eye was blue, there had to be some blue and visible fibers. Where the hematogenic was no blue and no visible fibers. The biliary is no blue and yes, visible fibers, right? And when you've got the no blue and the yes to the visible fibers, you know you're working with a biliary eye. Now, what does biliary make you think of? What organ does it make you think of? I'm going to give you a second to type that in. What organ do you think of when you think of biliary? Liver. Oh, Holly, brilliant. Absolutely perfect. Liver, right? Bilious, liver, bile. Yeah, we're talking about liver as a basic predisposition here. So we want to be focusing with these people on liver, digestion, gallbladder, and pancreas. Again, think back to your anatomy and physiology and understand how liver and pancreas play together and how they actually work together on many things in the body. And so really important for us to understand our anatomy and physiology in order to do iridology really well. So as we look at these people again and we ask them their questions, their eyes tell us that we want to be asking about personal or family history of liver issues, digestive concerns, gallbladder, pancreas. But again, we're only going to ask questions that are relevant to the clients here and now. We can branch off later, but for now, we want to make sure that our client knows they've been heard, that we are actually addressing their concerns directly, and that you can plant seeds and say, there's some other things here that we'll want to work on eventually, probably, but they're not important to the moment. I often don't even do that because I find that that makes people worry. Oh my goodness, what do you see? Is it bad? Am I going to die? Right? And we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. So just work with where they're at, and gradually you can build from there with time. Here's another beautiful example of a biliary eye. Can you see we've got fibers here that are radiating outwards? We've got no blue, got lots of gold, a little bit of brown, lots of stuff in here, but we've got lots of fibers and no blue. So that makes this biliary. So again, we're going to ask those questions about personal or family history of digestion, liver, gallbladder, pancreas, based on what our client has come in for help with. Now, just about every person, when you think through your anatomy and physiology, for just about every person, you can tie things back somehow to digestion, correct? That they're not digesting properly, which means they're not absorbing properly, which means they're not assimilating properly, which means you end up with symptoms X, Y, Z. And so with so many of these, we go, well, a lot of these eyes, you need to ask about digestion. You need to ask about liver. Yeah, because they're key players. They're key players in every physiological response in the body. And so they are top on the list oftentimes. All right. That makes sense for you? If I was to give you a pop quiz, do you think you could determine lymphatic, biliary, and hematogenic? That is the basic foundation piece. When you understand those three things, biliary, lymphatic, and hematogenic, you can actually do a ton of great work for your clients. You don't actually, maybe you work in a health food store where you're not allowed to actually give clients specific information or ask them personal questions. But if you're standing from, 3 feet back, social distancing or whatever, and you can see their eye color and they're looking at the silica products because they've got an arthritis situation going on. And if you can see they've got blue eyes, you know instantly that they're probably over acid, right? They probably are having problems keeping their minerals balanced, and they're probably struggling with that acid level, which you're actually going to address through the stomach, right? To make sure they're breaking foods down properly. So we use the eyes then to really guide the questions that we need to ask to get all of the pieces of information we need to be able to create logical and helpful programs for our clients. Does that make sense? So just want to throw in like a 30-second plug here, not long at all. Dynamic Iridology Assessment System for Holistic Health Practitioners is the name of the course that I have created. And it is fully mentored online course for nutritionists, herbalists, naturopaths who want to streamline their clinical work without sacrificing client care. So many holistic practitioners spend their own personal time creating client programs, and it's time that they're not getting paid for. Or they're struggling to create succinct, laser-focused programs that their clients can actually stick with. And so with that, we want to make sure that we find ways to help them. One of my students, Karen Choate, said this when I asked her how had learning iridology helped her in her business. And like I said, I'm having some tech issues here getting things. There we go. She said, iridology has helped me understand the relationship between the different organs and organ systems more in depth. Iridology also gives me an advantage of seeing the potential for different genetic traits and qualities that may be underlying. By observing the constitution of the eyes, she means, for example, you can extrapolate how the person's body will likely respond to applications of healing methods. Therefore, it has helped me expand my knowledge and increased proficiency at providing more precise recommendations for health-oriented options. I just love that, because that's why I designed the course. Absolutely. So on tomorrow, the 5th, we've got an info session about the program, where you can learn more about who the course is really designed for, how it can help you, learn all the ins and outs about it. And so if you are interested, I'm going to invite you to join me, and I'm going to put that link right there. It's in the chat box right now, so that you can come and learn about the course and learn, like I said, what's involved. You'll learn what you'll learn, right? Get the outline of what you learn, what's involved in the program, how is it delivered, how will it benefit you, how will it benefit your clients, all that kind of good stuff. So again, the course, just to give you a heads up, is starting on January 28th. You can see what time it is in most time zones in North America. If you're overseas, then I believe that's like midnight in England, and it's 11 a.m. I think the next morning in Sydney, Australia. And so that just gives you a little bit of a heads up about that. But to learn more, just join me tomorrow at 5 p.m. Mountain Time, and we'll give you all the details and help you understand who this course is for, so that you can decide if it's a good course for you to get into. With that, my friends, that is all I have for you tonight, or this morning. It's not tonight yet. It's not even noon. My goodness, where am I at? Good to have you with me. I hope that was helpful to you. Are there any other questions before we wrap up today? No, it looks like we're good. All right. Thank you so much for being with me, and I will see you again later. Bye for now. Hopefully tomorrow. Bye for now.